economies that you reference, is that there is more than one company that's involved. And so you have very many people competing for your money in terms of providing you with power. In Kenya, you have one KPLC. Could that contribute to the problem, whereby if perhaps you opened up the door to allow other providers to come in, what you do is then you invite price competition, and that will force people to either lower their prices in order to remain relevant in the market. But today, you don't have a choice. You want to put the lights on, you're going through KPLC. You don't have a choice. Would this affect the price if you had more people playing? And I'm not talking about from a regulatory point of view or from a power provider or producer, or rather from a power producer point of view. I'm talking about a provider. So you take what you get. You don't have an option. And so when we look at what affects the pocket, it's because on the buffet where it says we have a variety of servings, you only have meat. So it's either you take meat or you take meat. But if you had other people offering you lower tariffs, a bandwidth or a bundle whereby you had power, increasing and decreasing as per when you use it, perhaps it would lessen the pain. Does that make sense?
That makes sense, and that is a very good observation. And as we speak today, we have actually the month of May, quietly a lot happened. The Cabinet Secretary actually gazetted the electricity market, bulk supply, and open access regulation into law, meaning that we are going to transition from the single buyer model that we do have, where Kenya Power has been buying all the power from IPPs, and there has been what the customers see when they are paying bills, KPLC. But I think that is not the case anymore. But even as we speak, I want also to say that Two Rivers, for example, Two Rivers Mall, we have a company called Athena's Power that is licensed by HEPRA that reticulates and actually distributes electricity within Two Rivers. All the hotels you see, Two Rivers, or the malls, they are not actually supplied by KPLC. It is actually Athena's Power owned by Two Rivers. Again, Tatu City. Tatu City is I think, almost 30 kilometers from here. Tatu Power is actually licensed by HEPRA to distribute power within Tatu City. There is no KPLC there. Yes, they buy power at KPLC at 66 kV, but also they have their own solar plant there. But the future is competition, and I do agree with what Mutua said, that we need more option in this country, and that is the essence of the electricity market regulation that we are now implementing, because we are going to actually introduce competition. And I think if you have been looking at the media, you have seen the Minister of Energy has set out transaction advisory to actually undertake the first competitive procurement for solar and battery storage, because you want to test the market with that pilot. Then what will happen is that whenever you are planning for 20 years and you want to introduce, you want actually to have 1,000 megawatts from the market, maybe 200 megawatts from geothermal, another 300 megawatts from wind, you go to the market and you get a competitive price. So that is what is going to happen. Now within distribution, KPLC is no longer going to be the sole distributor. As I said, we have pockets of small, even Sarit Sender, Sarit Mall, they actually distribute their own power. Great Wall, on Mombasa Road, they distribute their own power. Even Lap Trust, they have Freedom Heights in Langata. They have their own power that they actually buy from KPLC and distribute and meter. The tokens we are talking about, they actually meter their own customers. But the good thing is that with the electricity market regulation, we are formalizing the market. Right now, even as we speak, we have 630 megawatts of captive power that have been licensed by HEPRA, not supplied by KPLC, generated and sold to a factory by other companies, private companies that are doing that. And the prices they are giving discounts of 40% what KPLC has. And I think that has been the beginning of competition. But now going forward, what we are seeing, and borrowing even from what has happened in Egypt had one utility, generating, transmitting, and distributing. What they have done, they now have about 6 distribution companies. I cannot rule out in Kenya that we are not going to have either KPLC, because like for Egypt, what they did, they actually split. So they have this old incumbent called the Egyptian Power, but it owns those distribution companies. But then they are able to compete for the same kilowatts, just like anybody else. And I think in Kenya, what we are doing now with that legislation in place is to actually now see electricity market being introduced, And then also we are opening up the transmission systems such that any person who is willing to generate power, they can use the transmission system. It's just like the expressway. When you want to use the expressway from Mulolongo to Westlands, and you have to pay. So when you are joining the expressway, you pay, and you use it and you exit in Westlands. The same way, if you want to use the system, you can buy power from even or carrier, from Kengen or even from IPPs, and you actually pay for that, get that power at your factory, but and use the system, use the transmission system, and you pay what we call a wheeling charge. So even we'll be able to compute like what will be the average cost of using a transmission line in Kenya, or even a distribution line. But there are conditions. If you are going to be wheeling your power from through the transmission system, you have to actually utilize, you have to actually show that you can use more than 10 MVS, like 10 megawatts for the transmission system, and 1 MVA for the distribution system. So we are working towards a power market. I think from the leadership, we have seen Kenya wants to be like Singapore. I saw yesterday a report also that has been produced.
Okay.
That we want to be a first world. In Singapore, the electricity market operator is the stock exchange. Is the Singapore Stock Exchange is the one that actually matches demand and supply, and it works perfectly. And we are seeing like in Kenya, we are going to have a market operator who will be different from KPLC, and their work is to match demand and supply. And then you remove all these conflicts of interest. And then also what happened is that the market will be more competitive, and many other people, because I'm very happy right now as we speak in Kenya, we have actually sort of made some of the utilities as government-owned enterprise. So they will become more commercial in nature, in the way they look, the way they are governed, transparency and all that. And that will be able to improve their investment outlook and even get more investors who may want to put money in. And also the infrastructure fund, for example, the National Infrastructure Fund. That is going to be another big change for us. The reason why Ethiopia has been doing big plans, because they have the Ethiopian Holding Company, which operates like the National Infrastructure Fund. And that is the fund that invests in big generation projects. And even our fund, if it is utilized actually to build big dams, build big geothermal power plants, then actually we'll be leveraging on a